Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Stands, the college football game day show. It is week 10. We are in double digits here. Got my boys back yet again, Andy Hopper and Tom Scavetta. Andy, your team played number one. It's a very good team, as we were just discussing. We'll start with the weekly recap, and I know that's going to be in your recap here, but let us know what you thought about that game and what else you watched on Saturday.
I just don't want to talk about it, Brian. How about we move right past it? It didn't even happen. But no, 38-9, the final score. I was very bold on the show last week, and I said Illinois outright. Was expecting the boys to show up a little bit more than they did, but I will not be upset about losing to the number one team on the road, where I've liked it to be a little bit of more competitive game. Yes, I will say they got fucked on their first drive. There was a face mask that did not get called, and Luke Altmaier's knee was not down. So really started the game on a sour note, but Oregon just did absolutely whatever they wanted offensively. They were throwing fucking screen passes, and like Dylan Gabriel, I don't know how much Oregon you guys have watched. Like they don't ask him to throw the ball. He doesn't have a lot of air yards. It is a lot of just quick, get the ball out and let your talented receivers do the work. And they certainly did that on Saturday against Illinois. Him and Tez Johnson had a couple connections. But yeah, Illinois is 6-2 at this point. I don't think I would have at the beginning of this year. I think I said I'd be ecstatic if they won 7 games. So we are already, bowl eligible, and there is a legitimate path for Illinois to be 10-2. So they should be favored in all the rest of their games. You got a big game against Minnesota this weekend. I'm going to be in attendance for, so hoping for good things there. And then a couple other games I want to just hit really quickly. Kennesaw State, guys, I don't know if you saw this. They got their first win as an FBS program last week, the 27-24 upset over Liberty, essentially knocking Liberty out of college football playoff contention. Liberty was like 24-point favorites going into this game, maybe even more than that. And Kennesaw State ended up winning outright 27-24. So shout out to them for getting their first FBS win. Notre Dame absolutely smashing the shit out of Navy. Like the only 2 games I got wrong for our pick'em pool this week were fucking Navy and Illinois. And Notre Dame just poured it on them 51-14. Navy turned the ball over 6 times. Then how about Nebraska hanging around with Ohio State? I was messaging with some friends during that game being like, all right, everybody's like, well, they're hanging around. I'm like, what absolutely heartbreaking way are they going to lose this one? Turns out to be that interception thrown by Raiola late, but Ohio State, their football playoff hopes stay alive. But I will give a hat tip to Nebraska. They gave them everything they can handle. And then finally, how about Vanderbilt, guys? They, going toe-to-toe with another top 5 team, this time giving Texas all they can handle. Texas escaped 27-24 on the road. I still think Vanderbilt should be ranked even after that, but it is what it is. Sorry, I know I went long as always, but a lot of good football this week.
No, long is good because that means there's a lot of good football, like you said. Tom, what about you?
Well, I had the privilege to be at the Notre Dame game this past weekend at MetLife Stadium. First Notre Dame game I've ever been to in person. Lifelong fan. 80-20 Notre Dame fans at MetLife Stadium. The Northeast has a lot of the Irish faithful up there. Riley Leonard played well. He played really well. Again, similar to Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, they don't ask him to throw the ball that much. 2 touchdown passes for Leonard, 1 to Jordan Faison, the other 2 Bo Collins. This was a game that Notre Dame dominated on the ground. Jeremiah Love had 102 yards and 2 touchdowns on 12 rushes. Leonard had 83 rushing yards and a score as well. And Kedron Young looked really, really good. Notre Dame has this tendency on their team traditionally of several different positions. You just develop and replace. Those positions are offensive line, tight end, and running back. I mean, they are so good at developing players at those positions, respectively. As Andy mentioned, Navy had 6 turnovers, 5 fumbles lost. Blake Horvath had 3 of them. I thought he played an okay game, but the credit really goes to Al Golden. He might be the best defensive coordinator in the nation right now. This was kind of a head-scratching hire when Marcus Freeman took over as head coach, but man, is he good. And Denbrock is really improving throughout the course of the season. But Al Golden, losing Ben Morrison for the year, top 10 pick in this year's NFL draft, potentially lost him, playing really well. Andy hit on Ohio State. I won't talk about that. Vanderbilt, I took Vanderbilt money line on the show last week, if you guys remember, and they were looking pretty good at one point. Almost called it. Quinn Ewers had 2 interceptions. Texas is overrated. Texas A&M beats LSU, and I love that because both them and Notre Dame jump into the top 10, and Texas A&M can beat all these teams, really good teams, and as long as Notre Dame doesn't lose again, A&M cannot jump Notre Dame in the standings, which is beautiful. And then Bama destroys Mizzou. Mizzou should not be ranked.
Yeah, for me, Andy, on the Kennesaw State note, literally right after we checked out post show, and I was talking to Tommy for like 2 minutes, popped on Facebook, and that was the first thing we saw was winless team beats undefeated team. So what a great first win for Kennesaw State and their fans. Yeah, you guys touched on the obvious ones. Alabama destroying Mizzou 34-0. Kind of embarrassing if you're, Mizzou. They were looking up at the beginning of the season, but they're definitely turning downwards. Obviously, Tommy's Notre Dame destroying Navy. Just can't believe you're doing that to the troops there. LSU, Texas A&M. That was a pretty good game till late. Texas A&M. We'll talk about them. They're on the card here, but again, I think Wakeman needs to stay on the bench, in my opinion. Marcel Reed, 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. I think he's the better package for them moving forward if they want to, get to the playoff and, go deep. And then, like you guys said, Texas, Vanderbilt, so close, so close. But they played 2 top 5 teams in the last 21 days, so it's still impressive in my book. That'll wrap it up. Hit on pretty much the same exact ones you guys did because everyone's watching the same great games. That'll bring us into our first segment here. It is Right or Wrong, CFP edition. Next Tuesday, I believe, they're still keeping it. We will have the first CFP committee rankings released to the general public. We're going to take our guesses here ahead of time on what we think they're going to get right and what we think they're going to get wrong as far as the team rankings go. So I've got our right column here on the left, our wrong on the right here. We're going to fill out some teams that each of us picked. Here, we'll start with Andy. Give us your first team.
So wrong, I'm going to go with Army. You're talking about the troops. We need to respect the troops in the rankings. They are 7-0. You look at their strength of schedule, and it's not the best. I will say that. But they are still playing some very good football right now, and I don't think they should be ranked behind 3 2-loss teams. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think there should be some more respect for Army, and I don't foresee that happening. I bet they win this weekend. They're playing Air Force. Actually, fun fact, Army, I believe, has covered the spread in every game this year. Air Force is the only team in the country that has failed to cover a spread to this point. So look out for that. Yeah, that's what I think they're going to get wrong. I hope I'm wrong about this. I think they need to show the troops some more respect. And then what I think they're going to get right is Georgia, because I think Georgia has played just as good as anybody this year. They, obviously they had that slip up against Alabama. They had a couple close games before that. But I think number 2 is right now. And I think if Oregon somehow finds a way to lose to Michigan at the Big House, I'd be perfectly fine with Georgia sliding into that one spot. But you also could make a case for the winner of Penn State, Ohio State to jump up as well. But I think they're going to get Georgia right. I think they're going to get Army wrong.
All right, Tom, give us, you got 3 here on the card. Give us your right and wrongs here for the CFP committee.
First up, Alabama. I think they're going to be ranked too high, so I have wrong for them. I think they'll be thrown in the top 12 right now because of their name, image, and likeness, Alabama. Look, they don't deserve to be in the top 12 right now. Will they end up in the CFP? Yes, but the initial rankings should not include them in it. They should be in that 13 to 15 range. They've lost more than once, guys. That's one of those teams that I'm not saying Army should be ranked above Alabama. Absolutely not. But it's one of those situations where the SEC bias is going to show, and Paul Feinbaum has even admitted it in the past. There is SEC bias in this committee. So that's my first wrong. Right, Miami, I think they're going to be placed just right. I don't think they'll go past the number 5 seed right now, regardless of how the results fall this weekend. Ohio State, Penn State. If Penn State loses, they probably won't drop too far because it's a loss to Ohio State. And Ohio State's one loss was to Oregon. Right? So it's one of those situations where I think Miami, as an ACC team, we saw last year with Florida State, right? Now, new CFP, who knows what could happen? They expanded it. I don't think it changes the demeanor of how you're going to rank the top 4 to 5 teams. And even if Miami continues to rake wins undefeated, I still think there's going to be at least one loss team ahead of them in the initial CFP ranking. So I think they'll get Miami right in that number 5 slot. Wrong, Texas A&M is going to be too low. Notre Dame's limitations of being in the CFP, not being able to go past the 5 seed, will screw up Texas A&M's initial seeding. They've gotten some dominant wins this season, including last week at LSU. They really took care of them. Their run game was phenomenal. Brian, you mentioned Wegman out, Reed in. That's certainly the way to go. And the Mike Elko effect is alive and well. However, Mike Elko, 0-2 against Marcus Freeman. I just want to throw that out there. The Aggies will be ranked a bit too low in these initial rankings because first-year head coach, really, really bad team the last couple of years before this season, and they're going to have to earn their respect. And I don't know. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be ranked all that high either initially. So I think A&M can't really jump them, so they'll be low as well.
Yeah, hold them back a little. For my first one here, kind of a weird pick because it's not specifically a team, but I'm going to use the Penn State logo because I think they're going to lose the game this weekend, showing my hand a bit before the Shots and Chasers. But yeah, I'm going wrong here on the loser of the Ohio State-Penn State game. Penn State here, even if they lose to Ohio State, I think they'll be ranked too highly currently. They're sitting on a very weak schedule. They played only one ranked team, that was Andy's Illinois. They squeaked out a 7-point win versus a 4-4 Bowling Green, survived by 3 against a really struggling, especially nowadays, USC team. And then on the Buckeye side, they started the season with some of the weakest stuff you can cook up, really. An absolute amuse-bouche of cupcake teams just served their way. The best win, 35-7 over 5-3 Iowa. Yeah, that's a good win, I guess. I mean, it is a good win. I won't downplay it. But then their second best win, a 4-point victory over Nebraska. I mean, they got nothing. Neither of these teams have anything on the resume yet that impresses me. And the strength of the schedule shows it. Penn State right now, 43. Ohio State, 52. So I'm saying the loser of this game, in my opinion, Penn State, is going to be ranked too highly by the committee. I think they should probably fall out of, or at least at the very bottom half of the top 12 at best. Next up, I have Vanderbilt, just a little fun one here because the boys took an L. It's a contentious one. Maybe they've got 3 losses, but I'm invested at this point, so who cares? The story's too good. Vanderbilt, I think the committee's going to get them wrong by not ranking them at all in the top 25. To put a 3-loss team in the top 25 at this point is, maybe a little over the top. But hey, listen, even if they beat Auburn this week, the committee's probably going to keep them out. I think that's some bullshit. It's a real shame that they lost that game to Georgia State because
that's the difference.
Yeah, this season will be looking real different. I think they could maybe be sitting in that like 18, 19 spot with room to run up. They've got a win over Virginia Tech, who's 3-1 in ACC play. They lost by 3 on the road to a 6-2 Mizzou. They beat the number 1 at the time, Alabama. They beat Kentucky on the road. That's a tough place to play. And then 2 weeks later, they hang around, like we just talked about, with their second top 5 team in 3 weeks, losing by just 3 to Texas. So, they're probably going to be unranked. Maybe deserved, maybe not. But hey, listen, they have a better strength of schedule than Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Penn State, Miami, Clemson. The boys are absolutely running through a hard schedule right now, unexpected from Vandy. So I think they're going to be placed incorrectly, a little bit unfairly, in my opinion. And then last, I have Miami here as well. So there are going to be 2 here, both on the side of right. But for me, I'm going, Miami sits at number 5 in the AP poll, and I think based purely on the way that they're barely hanging on by a thread almost every game, I think the committee's going to move them down. We've seen how much they say, oh, the eye test this, the eye test that. Yes, they're wins, but it's the same with Washington last year. They're just kind of barely hanging on. I think the committee is maybe going to move them just below Texas and possibly even Tennessee, despite those 2 teams both having 1 loss. So there's your card right there. Georgia, Miami. We think that they will get right and then wrong. It is loaded. As we've seen over the years, committee can get a lot wrong. Army, Alabama, Texas A&M, Penn State, and Vanderbilt. And that'll run us into our weekly segment. It is the parlay party here. I'm going to throw our bets on the board, as always. Plus 1,000 payout. I have moved it down to minimum of 3 picks here. Andy, we'll start with you. Who is on your card for week 10?
Yeah, so I'm putting my nuts on the table this weekend,
You
boys.
are.
This one is gonna win. I'm putting $100 on this. All right, so buckle the fuck up. All right, North Carolina minus 2.5 at Florida State. I know North Carolina hasn't been awesome this year, but they are coming off a 41-14 drubbing of Virginia. We all know how bad Florida State has been. I think did they score 21 points last week? No, I think they're still the only team in the country to not score any more than 21 points in a game. So give me the Tar Heels. I will take Nebraska minus 6.5 hosting UCLA. UCLA has yet to impress me this year. They are definitely in a rebuilding phase of this program. Nebraska is a really tough place to play. They're feeling good about themselves. Despite the loss at Ohio State, they've proved that they can hang with the big dogs, and I think they hang more than a touchdown victory on the Bruins of UCLA. Next, I'm going to go Wisconsin plus 3.5. They're going to Iowa. Kinnick is a very tough place to play. Wisconsin kind of got humbled last week, but I think they can. I foresee this as a low scoring. It's going to be a Big Ten game. They're going to run the football. You're going to play defense. A lot of punts, A lot of punts incoming in this game. I actually thought about putting Wisconsin money line in this, and I'll probably bet Wisconsin money line separately. But I will take 3.5. I like them to keep it within a field goal, and I like them to win the game, to be honest with you. Then lastly, I'm going to go Texas A&M -2.5 at South Carolina. I know they are traveling to play the Cox, Tom Scavetta's Cox, but I still think this line is a little bit disrespectful. I think it's too low. I like Texas A&M to win this by more than a field goal, and I agree with what Brian was saying earlier. I think Marcel Reed should be the guy going forward. So you're going to put all four of those together. It is plus 1105, $100 to win $1,105.41. Let's ride. Let's go.
You're riding very hard this week with the hundo.
I'm pissed. I lost another one by fucking 1 last week.
I'm not
like I've done that more than anything else this year, so I'm out for blood.
The betting gods are taunting us. Tom, give us your parlay.
Brian McCardle, once again, shout out to you for hitting last week.
Yeah, that's true.
First
awesome
one.
work. First up, again, this might give away some shots and chasers, but that's okay. Guys, this is no secret. James Franklin has beaten Ohio State once. He's not beaten them this week. Ohio State -3.5, despite being on the road at -105. Look, they're just a better football team. What more can I say? Next up, Illinois money line against Minnesota at home. That comes in at +125. You want to talk about a tough place to play? Champaign, Illinois. Hit up Andy Hopper, get some tickets to Saturday's game out in Champaign.
I'll be offering people tickets. I will be there with beer, and I will be making it a very tough place to play. I'm going to be in Goldie the Gopher's ass. All right.
Love it. Love that. Next up, America's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia, Florida was at this game last year. Awesome vibe, awesome experience. Over 47.5 points. The over has hit the last 2 years in this game. Things happen in threes. Third time's a charm. I think it hits -210. So again, not as favorable odds on that, or more favorable odds, pardon, but less of a payout for picking that one. Fourth leg, Indiana -7.5 at -110. Why not? They've covered every single week this season. Finally, Vanderbilt +7.5 at -120. Are you kidding me? At Auburn? I get it, they're at Auburn, but what is up with this line? Did Auburn do something amazing last week that I don't know about? I'm not so sure. Vanderbilt +7.5 seems like a lock to me. Added a 25% profit boost. That's +2712. $20 for 542.49.
Love it. Yeah, I didn't want to be left out of the mix as well, as you guys are up in your bets. So I'm taking 10 of that winnings from last week, and I'm throwing it into my parlay, going with 20 as well. Not as big of a spender as Andy.
I figured you'd do the full 145, but I didn't know you were a coward.
Yeah, sorry. Playing scared.
Yeah.
First up, I've got Ohio State -3 at Penn State. Listen, like I said, both teams kind of weak schedules so far. This is going to be a huge game. I do think if they stick with the backup QB and Tribula, they'll have a better time. But I still think, regardless of who's at QB, I think that Ohio State defense is going to eat them up. Penn State's, they look a lot shakier than Ohio State so far. So 3 points there. I think I maybe sold like half a point, or bought half a point, so -127. Indiana, I agree with you, Tom, about that line. Looks kind of ridiculous. -6 here. I bought all these down. I'm playing so scared this week. I just want to get that second win rolling. I'm addicted now. But -6 at Michigan State. That's at -150. Indiana just playing so well. Michigan State, and not that great at all, honestly. Kansas State -10 at Houston. Houston has been hot and cold, mostly cold, but they've had some surprise games, so I wanted a few points here. Bought it down to 10. That's -157. And then lastly, Texas A&M. I believe I sold some points here, so all the way down to -5.5 at South Carolina. South Carolina's pretty good, and I don't like the fact that all 4 of these games are on the road. So maybe that evens out my playing scared here with a little risky road game map here. But that's +126. That's just squeezed me over the line at +1,002. $20 to win $220.41. And that'll wrap up the parlay party. Actually, I want to ask one last question. You were talking about those punts, Andy. Is there a punt prop for that game by any chance?
Maybe.
Regardless of what it is, I almost want to jump in on the over for punts on that game.
So I know for the NFL, you can bet like result of the first drive to be a punt, because I hit on that
I like
a couple
that.
weeks ago. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
All right, while you're doing that, I will pull up the shots and chasers here. Sorry for taking us down the path of punts here. We're gonna start with Andy.
All good.
Start with Andy, anyways. on this one. We have number 2 Penn State taking on number 4 Ohio State. Huge clash here as far as the Big Ten goes. A lot on the line. Like I said, this is the first big game for both teams here. And if you don't have the punts yet, don't worry about it.
I'm invested now. I'm on the game.
Okay. If it's under 20, honestly, I would want to take the over for punts.
Oh yeah.
Iowa's probably good for at least 12 punts by themselves. They've had a better offense this year, actually. But...
So my buddy was at the Iowa game this past weekend, and we were bitching in our group chat about Illinois, and he said something smart. But he said Bielema needs to get the game over with so he can get to his post game meal faster or some shit. And I was like, "Fuck you, go cheer for a punt." And then he responded, he goes, "Dude, our punter is winning us this game right now. He's down."
Dead serious?
He was dead serious. He's like, he's down 3 punts inside the 5-yard line. Section 350 is loving it.
Section 350.
Yeah, they were the fucking nosebleeds. But I can't find anything on DraftKings right now.
That's okay.
But as far as this Ohio State game goes, they might have the most exciting receiver in the country in Jeremiah Smith. Him and Ryan Williams both being freshmen is absolutely insane. But Jeremiah Smith, 5 of his 35 receptions have gone for 40+ yards. He's a human highlight reel and an absolute threat anytime he gets the ball thrown his way. Will Howard has been, pretty solid since transferring in from Kansas State. 74% of his throws are being completed to his receivers, and he has done a pretty good job of making plays with his feet and taking care of the ball as well. Brian, you mentioned it earlier. Will it be Aller? Will it be Pribula? Aller, dealing with that knee injury. Pribula came in and looked pretty damn good last week. 29 for 44, 65. Okay, this is actually for his career. Excuse me, not last week. 29 to 44 for his career, 249 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt. And Brian's favorite, his ratio, 7 touchdowns to only 1 interception.
Love it.
He can do is hurt you with his legs. Over 468 yards on the ground with 7 touchdowns for his career. I almost like Penn State's chances better with this kid under center against Ohio State. I like, we talked about Ohio State's defense being so good. I think Pribula gives you that extra facet to this game, this different look where he's going to be able to get outside of the pocket if he gets in trouble and make something happen with his feet. Something that Drew Aller is you wouldn't necessarily say that's his forte. Right. And then Penn State also, Tyler Warren. Tom, I'm sure you were going to bring up this guy, the tight end that can do it all. He has secured 10 first downs on 3rd downs when they have absolutely needed it. The most among Big Ten tight ends. They put him under center. They put him in the shotgun. They have him throw it, catch it, run it. This kid can do it all. Stanton just hit it's a fly out. It looked like a home run. Oh my God. But yeah, give me Penn State to win this game. I think they upset the Buckeyes.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, look, that's a fair pick. Buckeyes narrowly escaped Nebraska last week. And despite their offense averaging 40 points per game, they only put up 21 on the Cornhuskers last week. They have not allowed, though, defensively, and this is what rocks the boat for me, they've not allowed more than 17 points per game against anybody except Oregon. And I think their balance of run and pass offensively is too much for the Nittany Lions to stop. Quinshon Judkins on the ground, over 500 yards, 6 scores. Travion Henderson, 454 scores. And then you add Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. Those guys, solid receivers, both over 500, 600 yards. Each have 6 or more touchdowns on the year. Smith with 8. And then I look defensively. You got Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock. Those guys are going to have great games, in my opinion. They're really solid corners. Jack Sawyer off the edge, getting in Pribula's face, imagining he's going to start, because James Franklin admitted on Monday it's too early to tell who the starter will be by Saturday, meaning that it's not looking good for Drew Aller, if you could read between the lines. Suffered a left knee injury against Wisconsin. This is a game, too, where Penn State will have to lean on the run, per usual. They average 197 per game. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, really good at the run. But what does Penn State also do well? They throw the ball to their backs, right? They love to throw dink and dunks. Nick Singleton has 4 touchdown receptions on the season because of that. And their best weapon is none other than their tight end, Tyler Warren, living up to his name. He's been really, really solid this season. Love what I've seen from him. Red zone threat, 4 scores. Harrison Wiles, too. You want to get him on the perimeter. Good guy to throw the ball to. I want to see Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis Sutton get to Will Howard. Make him, make rushed decisions. Don't let him get the ball out to his playmakers. I think that's another key for me as well. Again, tipping point here. James Franklin, 1-9 against Ohio State. I'm going the other way. Give me the Buckeyes in that spread of 3.5.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, this is a huge game for both teams. Like I mentioned in the earlier segment, their strength of schedule is both not great. Either team, really, really low in that regards. They really need this game to pump that up for them. As far as this is going forward now after Tuesday. This is in the committee's eyes. No AP poll. We know it's mainly eye tests. So pumping up that strength of schedule, which that committee seems to lean on, is going to be helpful to whichever team gets the win this weekend, and it'll help solidify their spot in those top rankings. Penn State, what are they going to do at QB? You guys covered it pretty much, but that's what I'm looking at. Aller seems to be day to day, obviously, like Tom just said. But I mean, this and Texas A&M, to me, are both situations where the backup QB has come in, shown that they're the better pick, and it's almost like FOMO, like the coach wants to put in the guy that they trusted at the beginning of the season because they don't want to look wrong or something. And both teams have gone back to the starter. Texas A&M now last week went back to Marcel Reed, so we'll see if Aller is healthy, who they go with, who Franklin picks. For me, also, I think Tribula had a good enough game last week to be thrown into the mix again. I know you're kind of throwing him out there to the pit bulls against an Ohio State defense, but to me, he looked like the better talent. Obviously, I think the advantage lies with Ohio State, though. The running back duo is superb, and they have the most to lose because they already have that conference loss to Oregon. So a loss here almost effectively eliminates them from Big Ten title contention, I would think. Whereas Penn State doesn't have that loss, so Ohio State is the more desperate team here. Yeah, as far as offense goes, they've got maybe the best duo in both offensive skill positions. Smith and Ekbuka at wide receiver, Judkins and Henderson at RB. Just offense spread all around that team. So I'm going to go with Ohio State here as well. And then moving into the chaser for our noon slot, we have Arkansas taking on number 19, Ole Miss. Andy, who do you like to win this one?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game. You have some Ole Miss Rebels that are banged up. That are pretty important. Trey Harris could potentially miss his second game in a row after sitting out last week against Oklahoma. Didn't affect Ole Miss too much as they got that 26-14 win. You still have Jackson Dart under center. He's got 2,695 yards and is completing 70% of his passes, 15 tutties to 3 interceptions, added 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground as well. And then the running back, Henry Parrish Jr., has been awesome for them. 671 yards and 10 scores, averaging 84 yards a game. He's going to have to help them out, especially if they are missing Harris. I believe Walter Nolan on the defensive side of the ball at DT will be playing this game. So that is a big addition for Lane Kiffin's team. On the Arkansas side of the ball, Taylor Green has been really good for them this year. 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. He does have 7 interceptions, so he's going to have to take care of the ball, especially in a game like this, if they want to hang around with a high-powered offense like Ole Miss. And then Taylor Green can hurt you with his legs, too. 395 yards and 5 scores on the ground. Jaquindon Jackson, speaking of on the ground, has been great for them, too. 10 scores of his own. He can also hurt you through the air out of the backfield with 10 catches on the year. I like Ole Miss to win the game. I think Arkansas does keep it closer than people are going to think, or I think they would, but Ole Miss wins.
All right, Tom?
I mean, look, when I look at Arkansas, they just blew out Mississippi State, and they have 3 losses: LSU, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State. They have a good quarterback in Taylor Green who's maturing week in and week out. He's good on his feet as well. 5 rushing scores, 11 passing. Andy mentioned Jaquindon Jackson, 10 scores. He's a threat any day of the week. Passing-wise, they could be a little bit better, but Andrew Armstrong is their primary option, has over 700 receiving yards. After that, it's Luke Haas, the tight end, 3 touchdowns, guy who can stretch the defense on play-action bootlegs. Defensively, they have some dogs. Landon Jackson, potential second-round pick this year, day 2 pick, 3.5 sacks. Want to see more out of him. Get to Jackson Dart. And then TJ Metcalf, the DB, has been really, really good in press man coverage, 3 picks on the year. When I look at Ole Miss, they also lost to LSU, but at LSU, and then they lost at home to UK. And there's a lot going right for the Rebels this season, and it starts with Jackson Dart, 3rd in the FBS with nearly 2,700 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and they average 184 rush yards per game. We talked about Parrish. He's great. Harris, if he plays, 2nd most yards in the FBS this year, closing in on 1,000, just 13 yards away from that. If he doesn't, they still have serviceable options in Caden Lee and Antoine Wells. Defensively, the Rebels scare me too. You got Princely with 5.5 sacks. Suntrain Perkins has been a beast on that second level, crashing in on 3rd and long. You want to stay out of 3rd and long if you're the Hogs. And then Jared Ivey as well off the edges, quick on his feet. Lastly here, Trey Amos, 10 passes defended, 2nd in the nation, boys. But the Rebels have only won once in Arkansas over the past 12 years. Give me the Hogs.
Ooh. Yeah, excuse me if I start to go quick, everybody. I've been trying to hold back this cough that I have. I've been drinking tea over here like a damn British person. Um,
In it.
but I'm all out, so it's fighting back on me. Yeah, Ole Miss sporting close losses to LSU and Kentucky. Really good team. I think they're on paper the better team. They've had the most slip ups. I'll say they look the most disjointed of the two, which is kind of weird considering how we talked about them at the start of the season. But yeah, Jackson Dart obviously thriving under this Lane Kiffin offense still. Henry Parrish Jr. Has contributed himself with 10 touchdowns on the ground as well. Like Andy said, the Trey Harris maybe not there for the Rebels to rely on. Arkansas sitting at 5-3. They've been on and off each week. I don't know what to think, despite their 5-3 start. They did knock off Tennessee, and they played Texas A&M close though. So I agree with you guys that this will probably be a closer one than a lot of people think. Taylon Green out there, replaces KJ Jefferson. That looked like a weird decision. We took KJ Jefferson, and I've had to watch him be awful through the air. So clearly they knew what they were doing there. Taylon Green has been a good replacement. I think this one, we talk about this one being closer than everyone thinks. I think this honestly might come down to a kick. And the reason I'm going to go with Ole Miss here is because the kickers for Arkansas are not great unless it's a gimme. Kyle Ramsey, they've actually switched kickers on and off. So Kyle Ramsey, 5 for 10, past 40, not even past 50, just past 40, which is, college kicker, you should be able to make those quite consistently. And then so they put in Matt Shipley. He's only had 2 so far, but he's only 1 for 2 past 40. So if this game is close down late, don't be surprised if Arkansas loses this one on a kick. So I'm going Ole Miss with a surprise kicker stat there. Moving into the midday, we have Michigan taking on number 1 Oregon. Andy, we'll start with you. You got to witness how good this team is last week. Do you think they dog walk Michigan as well?
Yeah, I saw Michigan in person the week before, and then I saw Oregon play my team and dog walk us last week. So, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this. Jack Tuttle officially retired from football. The Michigan quarterback who had played the last couple games suffered a concussion. Davis Warren back in for the Wolverines. So that quarterback situation just continues to be an absolute mess. There is no way Michigan hangs with Oregon. The defense might be able to slow them down a little bit, but our Oregon's just too good. Boise State had some success on the ground, but they have Ashton Jeanty. Michigan has some good running backs. By the way, scumbags, apparently, if you watch that video of the fight with Michigan State, Khalil Mullings being allegedly stomped out a Michigan State staff member on the field, but I don't know. And he only had like 18 carries or 10 carries for like 18 yards or something last Saturday. Sucks. But Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks are going to roll the Wolverines in the Big House.
Yeah, I don't want to comment on that either because I know they're still investigating it, but I think his excuse, or at least, the Michigan staff trying to defend him, said that he was trying to hold people back, which I don't know how you get those two things confused, stomping on a player and holding people back.
Yeah, he's going like this. He's holding people back with his fucking foot. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so we don't get sued by Michigan because that seems like something they would do. We'll say it's open to investigation still. Tom, who do you like in this game?
Well, it's not too hard, gentlemen. Jordan James has been great on the ground for the Ducks. We talked about Gabriel. Also has 5 rushing scores, really, really accurate passer. Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Terrence Ferguson. I think Ferguson gets a touchdown this week, finally. Matayo Ukulele with 5.5 sacks. Yui Ungalale. Jabbar Muhammad, 7 passes defended. And then Tysheem Johnson has those 2 picks. The Ducks have some guys on defense, right? They had to make that transition to the Big Ten. If you're going to be successful in the Big Ten, what do you need? Defense. Bryce Botcher brings the juice, man. He's a really good linebacker. Jordan Birch with 5 sacks. Derek Harmon as well has a knack for causing turnovers. Davis Warren has re-earned the trust of the coaching staff for now. Had a solid performance, 2 touchdown passes to tight end Colston Loveland, but the team averages just 130 passing yards per game. Yeah, Khalil Mullins and Donovan Edwards will not win you this football game. Warren will have to make plays with his arm. And outside of Loveland, the tight end, nobody else on Michigan has more than 118 receiving yards. Now, the question is it because the quarterbacks can't get them the ball? Or are the receivers not developing through routes in time? Does the line suck? I think it's a combination of all 3. I think their defense will keep them in the game through the first quarter, and then they fold. I think Josiah Stewart's a decent player, Mason Graham too, but man, quack, quack. Oregon is going to beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I think it's an easy one here for me as well. Oregon, obviously that dominant win over Illinois last week. They got going very early with that 83-yard TD, which, like Andy said, not going to take that one lying down because it was a bit questionable. But yeah, I mean, they kept Illinois out of the end zone until the third quarter. So you take that away from the game, and they still were rolling pretty comfortably. The Ducks offense just continued to rack up yards there. Dylan Gabriel, great through the air again, three TD passes. He continues his streak of multiple TDs in every single game so far this season. So just, I mean, they're like a machine so far this season. I know just last week I was saying Georgia probably, could roll up there for the top number one spot, but I think I'm leaning like my conclusion is Oregon deserves that spot at this point. Yeah, so expect a ton of balls to Tez Johnson there. He averages over 10 yards per catch for the Ducks. Michigan, not much to talk about. They're improving a little bit. They sit at 5-3, but it's still a mess. QB situation is a mess. Like Andy said, Jack Tuttle medical retire for concussions. Tua, if you're listening, maybe look into that, buddy. But yeah, their defense has been okay the past 3 weeks, only allowing 5 TDs in the last 3 games. 2 of those games on the road, so they're improving. But this Oregon team is just too good for them, I think. So I'm going Ducks here, and I think they roll. And then obviously we got to put the world's largest outdoor cocktail party on here. It is Florida versus Georgia in our midday chaser slot. Andy, who do you like to win this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same as the last game at Georgia. They're going to roll Florida. Florida's looked better than expected this year for sure. You had Mertz go down with that injury. DJ Lagway comes in, and he's kind of an all-or-nothing guy for the Gators. I believe in their last game, he averaged like 25 yards per pass attempt. So he just goes all or nothing, and that has given Georgia some problems this year defensively. They've struggled and given up some big pass plays. Do I think that's going to be enough for the Gators to win the game? Absolutely not. Georgia wins this game, and I think they win it by a lot.
All right, Tom?
Expect a huge bounce back performance from Carson Beck, man. They're coming off a bye, an impressive 30-15 win at Texas. What's the biggest difference between Georgia and Alabama, and why I think Georgia is still better than Alabama despite having lost to them? They can win football games when their quarterback plays badly. Alabama cannot. America's largest cocktail party, love it. Was there last year, awesome experience. Recommend it one day. And Trevor Etienne, a little revenge game for him. Played with the Gators last year. 7 touchdowns for the Dogs on the season, despite missing the first game. Still really good numbers for him. Arian Smith and Dominic Lovett have stepped up big time with the absence of Colby Young. Dylan Bell with 4 scores too. Lawson Lucky has overstepped Oscar Delp, who's taken on more of the blocking tight end role this season. Expect for Lucky to make some big plays in this game too. And defensively, Jalen Walker's starting to come on. I really like him for the Dogs. And then Malachi Starks too, really solid DB. Last year, their strength was the secondary. They've improved up front. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins with 3 sacks, Michael Williams with 2. When I look at Florida, I'm looking at a young quarterback in DJ Lagway, who this is a big stage for him, guys. He's turnover prone, but he's young. He's inexperienced. He has to lean on Montrell Johnson Jr. and Jaden Ball for any chance in this game. There are weapons there like Shamir Duke and Elijah Badger. Not enough, though. Florida's defense has gotten better, but it's not good enough to stop Georgia, and they cover 16.5 too in this one.
Oops, yeah, that is getting into dog walk territory for a rivalry game like this. Yeah, listen, Florida's done a whole lot of nothing. DJ Lagway is finally getting playing time, though, but he's still raw. And what do you do with raw meat? You throw it to the Dogs. He's got 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions already, and he knows how much I love those ratios. That is a really bad one. He's young, so it's understandable, but against this Dogs defense, I don't think things are going to go very well. I think he throws at least 2 or 3 interceptions in this game, as Carson Beck does have a bounce back game, like you guys said, and then Trevor Etienne to eat up the Gators defense on the ground. There's, I mean, nothing much to say about Florida. Like Andy said, this is kind of like the game that we just talked about, Michigan, Oregon. Probably, too much to handle for Florida, but weak slate this week, boys. So we got to get something on the card. At least the fans will be really drunk, so that's good. Moving into the 7:30 slot, we got a ranked versus ranked matchup here out of the ACC. It's number 20 SMU, the new kids on the block, taking on number 18 Pitt. Andy, who do you like to win this one?
Yeah, so the storyline going into this game, fellas, both starting quarterbacks appearing on the injury report this week, and I believe both of them have been cleared to play. I know on the Pitt side of things, Eli Holstein will be under center, and SMU's Kevin Jennings is going to try to play, whatever that means. I think that's something to watch out for. Pitt, talk about what they did to Syracuse last week, just absolutely bullied them. 3 pick sixes in the first half against Kyle McCord. Unbelievable. Do they have that in them this week? I don't know, but I do like them to go down to Dallas and win this game. SMU struggled with Duke last week. I think Duke's a good football team, but I think Pitt's a better football team, and I think Pat Narduzzi's squad is primed to pull off somewhat of an upset on the road. These are 2 undefeated teams in the ACC, fellas, so this has a lot of implications for in the conference. But yeah, give me Pitt.
All right, Tom.
Look, Pitt forced 5 Kyle McCord interceptions last week. Their offense is really good too, averages 40 points per game. I'm glad Holstein is back on the healthier side of the bubble. Announced as of 2 hours ago at the time of this filming that he is good to go. Desmond Reed in the backfield, really good dual threat as far as rushing and receiving, has more receiving touchdowns than rushing this year. Kanata Mumpfield at wide receiver, really good player, closing in on 500 yards. And Raphael Williams Jr. is a guy who can be a vertical threat, 5 touchdown receptions. Defensively for the Panthers, they have Jimmy Scott, Rasheem Biles, Kyle Lewis, and Braylon Lovelace. Guys with 3 or more sacks on that roster. They can get to the quarterback and make Kevin Jennings a little bit uncomfortable. Remember, it was Preston Stone to start the season. That didn't last very long. And the Mustangs, they had to win by 1 point in overtime against Duke. The key here is it was on the road. They'll be back home this week for this one, so hence why they're favored by 7.5. For me, the question mark is, can Pitt stop the run? Oh my goodness, Brashard Smith is an animal back there. 745 yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, you have RJ Maryland too. This is the first time these 2 teams have met since 2012. And yes, Pat Narduzzi has had success. I think this one is a bit too tall of a task for them. I'm going to roll with SMU and go the other way here, but they don't cover.
Yeah, both teams on a roll here. But ESPN giving SMU a huge advantage here. This is another one for me, at least, that I think is going to be closer than a lot of people think. Both teams look really solid. Not many slip-ups from either team. I wasn't aware that both QBs were sitting on the questionable list. But yeah, I mean, I think both will. This is a big game. I think both are going to play if they even think that they can. So, Eli Holstein for Pitt, Kevin Jennings for SMU. Great performances so far this season. They're putting up so many points. Again, the similarities in scoring offense. SMU 39.1 points per game. Pitt 40.9 points per game. So this is going to be a fun one, no matter who you root for or if you're a neutral fan one. And I would say, I guess, the best move besides picking a team is to just take the over in this one. Because I feel like that's going to hit for sure. Definitely don't take the punts in this one. Save that for Iowa. But I'm going to give the edge to Pitt here as well. Holstein, he's got the advantage of being able to take off on his feet. He's taken off 62 times this year. He's got 3 touchdowns to show for it. And then on Pitt on the defensive side, very well rounded, especially on the D line and at the linebacker position. They've got 5 guys who already have notched 3 sacks this season, so they're going to keep the pressure on and keep SMU honest. So I'm going Pitt there. And then lastly, we're rounding it out. Last night game here, Clemson, number 11, taking on Louisville. Andy, who do you like to win this one?
Yeah, give me Clemson. So since that first week, that loss for Clemson to Georgia, they've won 6 in a row. They're beating by their opponents by 27 points per game on average. Klubnik has looked really good. I think they're better than Louisville. Louisville obviously started 3-0. Then they dropped that game to Notre Dame, dropped another one after that. So they are kind of reeling a little bit. I still think they are a very good football team. I just think Clemson's better. Take the over in this game is my prediction. But yeah, Clemson wins.
There you go. Just right on the overs for the night games here. Tom, who do you like in this one?
Since the UGA lost, Clemson has won every game by multiple possessions. Why? Their offensive line is phenomenal. Best in the ACC, in my opinion. Even better than Miami's. Cade Klubnik has been sacked just 5 times this season, resulting in 20 touchdown passes, 4 on the ground. This guy under center, huge upgrade over Ukulele and whoever the hell they had last year. It was Klubnik, but a younger Klubnik. Anyway, spreads the ball really well, and the offense averages 200 rush yards per game. Phil Maffa, I don't know what his status is. I guess he's on track to play. I don't know if he got a little dinged up last week. I know he's a hard runner, kind of like a bigger version of Kyron Williams, a guy whose running style typically doesn't get you through the whole season. But they have weapons in the pass game. Jake Brittingstool at tight end, and Antonio Williams and TJ Moore. Defensively, they're really improved. I like what I see from Sammy Brown and TJ Parker. Wade Woodaz also has been a really solid linebacker next to Barrett Carter. You got to give Dabo Sweeney some credit. We may not, love talking about Sweeney, but he is an excellent football mind. Cardinals, they have losses to SMU, Notre Dame, and Miami. Tyler Shook, Not a bad season for him, but defensively, they've been terrible. Ashton Gillott, just 2 sacks this year. He can't get to the quarterback. If you put 5 pieces of brick in front of him, he wouldn't be able to get to the quarterback. I expect Quincy Riley and Corey Thornton to be targeted early and often in this game. Clemson wins in a wrap.
Yeah, listen, I'll be straight to the point. Clemson is my pick here as well. They got one of the most potent offenses in the country behind Klubnik, 42 points per game. They're 5th in yards per game at 490. They're not a top 30 offense in yards, but that's because they've played one less game than everyone, so I expect to see them up in the top 15 once things have evened out. Tom, obviously got to talk about some tight ends for you here. They've got 7 combined TDs this season. Compared to the wide receivers, they're just about even with the wide receiver core. So Brenningstool and Olsen Pat Henry, which great tight end name there. And they're doing this again. I mentioned this a few weeks ago with no transfers. That's what Dabo's decided to do with his team with the NIL landscape. We questioned it. I mean, at least I questioned it last year. But it's working out for them and the military school. So more power to them. They do look like a good team, despite that policy, which that's what Dabo wants to do. Tyler Shuck on his 3rd team here for Louisville. He does look like he's finally settled in at the QB position. He's thrown 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions this season. Isaac Brown leading the ground game for the Cardinals. 649 rush yards with 6 TDs. But I'm most concerned about their defense. Louisville has a secondary that hasn't really done anything of note. Just 17 passes deflected in the entirety of the season so far, and just 2 interceptions. Cade Klubnik has been playing very, very smart with his passes this year, not making a ton of mistakes. So if Louisville's offense, isn't able to produce those game-changing moments, with those exciting interceptions that change of possession, change the vibe of the game, I think Klubnik is going to be able to just dodge and weave through this entire Louisville secondary and get points on the board for Clemson. Also, Louisville going into the fake Death Valley here, Death Valley Junior. Obviously, LSU's got the #1 Death Valley, at least to me, as an unofficiated LSU fan. But it's still a hard place to play. So Clemson, better team, better stadium, better atmosphere. I'm going with the Tigers as well. That's going to wrap up our shots and shades. That'll wrap up our show. We are 10 weeks through the season. It feels like
Brian, I've got one thing to add.
Go for it, my man.
On the punts.
Oh, here we go.
I can't find like a line for total punts, but what I have found, you can bet the first drive result for Iowa: offensive touchdown plus 380, field goal attempt plus 500, punt minus 135, any other plus 470. Wisconsin first drive result: offensive touchdown plus 460, field goal attempt plus 500, punt minus 150, any other plus 500. The play that I love here is you can parlay these two together.
I was just going to ask. You're reading my mind.
So you take Iowa and Wisconsin first drive result, punt is plus 180.
Oh my!
So it's not like super, like it's not crazy, but it's like, I mean, come on. I think I hit this with, it was one of the shitty Thursday night games a couple weeks ago. It was like the Jets and somebody, I think.
Giants.
Like, yeah, maybe the Giants. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so you can bet on punts, but I'll look. Check it out on your sports book on Saturday. Maybe they just don't have anything available yet. I've never seen anything like that, but the first drive bet is a very, very fun one to sweat out.
There you go. For everyone who stays late, there's the betting tip right there, late in the show.
Stay late.
But you read my mind. That parlay sounds super juicy. But yeah, sorry about that. We got too deep in the punts there for everyone. That's going to wrap up the show. That's week 10. I know, feels like we're almost done with the season, but with the extended playoff, we're only, about halfway done, boys? So we got a lot more action for you, but enjoy this week's action. And then you can catch us back here next week, same time, same place. Links for my boys Andy and Tom down in the description. Be sure to follow their shows. And we'll see everybody next week for week 11.